Hello everyone, my name is Katie and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we are ranking all of the metal subgenres, at least most of them. A lot of times you have like subgenres of metal, like let's say we have black metal and death metal. Well, now we're starting to call things black and death metal and things like that. I'm gonna keep it kind of simple and just do like the umbrella term for each subgenre. Hope that makes sense. I'm really excited to do this. I've really been thinking about this the last couple of days and trying to analyze what my actual favorites are. That way I can prepare for this video and properly rank this. So this is all going to be personal opinion. This isn't really based on what I think is technically the greatest or takes the most skill or whatever. It's just the things that I enjoy the most and I think sound the best for my own ears. So let me know in the comments down below what you agree with or disagree with, and let's go ahead and rank metal subgenres. So first things first, let's explain some of these tiers. So the first tier is Ride or Die. And this is going to be the subgenre that I like most bands in this subgenre, if not all of the bands in that subgenre. And if it's this genre of music, I'm going to like it. It's one of those things, like, you know you're going to like it, whatever. Love is the one that I like a lot of the bands in the subgenre. For the most part, I think it's really good. But it's not my absolute favorite subgenre. You know, it's close, but not quite. We have the like tier, which is really just, it's pretty explanatory. It's right in the middle. It's just the averagely liked subgenres for me. The ones that I want them to be around, I guess. Like below this, we have the take it or leave it tier. That's more of the one, like, I could care less if this band, or if the subgenre never existed. But the like tier is more like, I want it to exist. I don't listen to it every day, but it's still a part of my life. And so yeah, take it or leave it, self-explanatory. And then least favorite, also self-explanatory, just something that I hardly listen to at all. I don't know if there's any subgenres on here that I never listen to, but definitely ones that are considered my least favorite and I don't like go out of my way to listen to. The reason I don't have a tier below least favorite that says like horrible is because I like all of the subgenres on here. I genuinely like all metal subgenres in some way or the other. Even my least favorites, I can pick out certain bands that I like from there. I just love metal, so I'm not even gonna make a tier that says horrible because it wouldn't be true. Okay, so first we have black metal. So I think I'm gonna go with the more like traditional black metal bands, like the Norwegian black metal bands and like Mayhem, that sort of thing, Burzum, those types of bands. I'm gonna make people really mad, but black metal for me just never did a whole lot. I appreciate the vocals. The instruments kind of lose me because I feel like it's meant to sound kind of harsh and crazy and not well produced and stuff. I understand that aspect of it. But for myself, I'm more of like a music nerd and I want to really hear the music and appreciate all the layers of like the instruments, and I like a well produced song, if that makes sense. And black metal just isn't that. It's meant to be like chaos and rebellion. I get that and I respect that. But for me, like sonically, when it comes to the actual sound of the music, I'm gonna have to say my least favorite. I'm starting off strong. You guys are going to be so mad. Feel free to dislike this video. If you don't like this, just dislike it. I'm not going to get mad at you. Anyways, wow, we're starting off strong. Next is goth. By goth, I mean bands sort of like Typo Negative, that like grungy sort of like, it's a mix between goth rock and then metal. It's like they just take goth rock and make it heavier and darker. Sort of got like a doom metal vibe to it, but not quite. You could also think about like the gothic metal bands like Lacuna Coil. They're very like, it's like whimsical but in a dark way. Those are the kind of bands I'm putting in the goth category. And honestly, I'm gonna say I just like it. I like the goth metal genre. It's not my favorite. I listen to bands like Cradle of Filth sometimes, but like those bands could probably get erased from existence and I wouldn't really care. No, I'm not going to say that. I would put them in the take it or leave it tier if that's how I felt. They're a little bit above the take it or leave it. Like, I like them enough to want them in my life. It's definitely not love, because love would be something that like I listen to like very often. And goth is just one of those things that gothic bands just sort of pop into my playlist every now and then, but it's not an all-time regular occurrence. Next up we have death metal. Okay, death metal is a massive umbrella. So you have like the old school death metal bands like Possessed, Death. You have like the brutal death metal bands like Dying Fetus and Pig Destroyer and all those sorts of things. You have lots of different styles of death metal. Melodic death metal is on here actually as like a separate category. There's also gore grind on here, so maybe I can, I guess death is just going to be those old school death bands, like I said, like the very original ones. I'm going to put that in the love tier. It's almost ride or die, but not quite. I really love a lot of death metal bands in all the different categories, really, but it's not always the case. There's a lot of death metal bands that kind of all sound the same to me, and it becomes sort of just repetitive. It's one of those genres that, like, I can pick and choose bands that I think are so good, and then other ones I just don't really care for. But for the most part, it's love. Nu metal. Okay, nu metal is controversial. So this is the subgenre of metal that pretty much gets blamed for destroying metal. And it's pretty much, you could really use the term alternative metal for the nu metal category. They're pretty much the same thing. It's like that early 2000s, maybe late 90s version of metal where it started to become more experimental, and like elements from other genres of music would come in. Like we had rap metal, there was like some pop influence in there. It became sort of mainstream, so they mixed the mainstream music with the metal, blah blah blah. For me, growing up in the early 2000s, I grew up in an era where nu metal was extremely popular. Bands like Korn and System of a Down and Slipknot, all of that stuff. For the most part, I don't really listen to nu metal anymore. So I'm going to put it in the like tier. I can't say take or leave, only because I really like System of a Down. I would put them in this category as like alternative metal. It's interchangeable with nu metal. Bands like that make me not able to put it in take it or leave it. Same thing with Slipknot. I still listen to them. Now granted, there's a lot of nu metal bands I'm really not a fan of, but I like too many really popular bands in this category to rank it any lower. So I'm just going to say like. It's just like goth. I have the same view on it. I definitely don't want it to not exist anymore. I'm not the type of metalhead to say that. Some people hate nu metal, but I don't hate it. Next up is power metal. So these are bands like Sabaton and Powerwolf and Dragon Force and all those sorts of things. I listen to a lot of power metal. I listen to a lot of like European power metal bands, like Finnish, Swedish bands. That's like a big genre over there, and a lot of people don't really like it. It can be cheesy at times. Like, how do I explain this? A lot of times power metal music is used as like anime intros, and it has like this cheesy like anime feel to it. I don't know, but I love it. I'm a sucker for a cheesy ass power metal band, power metal song. Recently I've been really into Dynasty. They're like a power metal band, and I swear they have a little bit of like a pop sound. Not like generic pop, but like catchy pop, you know? It's like power metal and ABBA mixed together because it's a Swedish band. That's like the best explanation I could put into it. I actually really like power metal. I can't say take it or leave it. Let's say like or love. I'm gonna say like. I'm just gonna say like because it's hit or miss for me with power metal. Like, sometimes I'll find a band like Dynasty that I love so much. I'll find another band that I'm just like, this is kind of cringe. Like, I don't know. Like Sabaton, for example, they're really good, but all their songs are about history, and I'm not really into that, so I just like certain songs by them. I don't know. I just feel like it makes sense to put it with goth and new. Like, I want it to exist, don't want it to go anywhere, but I wouldn't say I love all of power metal. Next up we have glam metal. Okay, glam is really hard for me because I see glam metal a little differently than other people. Some people think of it as bands like Motley Crue and Kiss and all that, and I kind of see those bands as glam metal, but I'm sort of thinking of the more like a little bit heavier hair bands. Even like Ozzy Osbourne back in the 80s, like Diary of a Madman, Blizzard of Oz. That's kind of like glam metal to me. I don't know. And like Ghost, for example, that's like a modern glam metal. Not all of their discography by any means. A lot of their stuff is like doom and progressive rock and all sorts of other things. But Ghost has a lot of like glam rock songs. It's the kind of songs that make you want to like move your hips a little bit, but it's got some heavy elements to it too, like deep bass tones and, you know, like faster drumming or just crunchy guitars in general. I'm gonna have to put glam and like. I see it as the rest of those. Is everything gonna be in the middle tier here? I wouldn't say could take it or leave it just because I do enjoy that style sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. Next up is Deathcore. This is gonna be controversial, but I might have to put this in take it or leave it, okay? I like some deathcore bands, but the subgenre as a whole makes me just not very excited. Like, I like Rings of Saturn and Whitechapel, Slaughter to Prevail. Lorna Shore is a really popular deathcore band. We got Chelsea Grin, Suicide Silence. I mean, apparently I like deathcore. I didn't realize. But I don't know what it is. I really, honestly, all those bands I could live without. Like, the only one I really go out of my way to listen to right now is Slaughter to Prevail. I've been listening to Lorna Shore a little bit because they're so popular and I just want to see what all this hype is about. But realistically, could take it or leave it. I don't know what it is. It never excited me a whole lot. I feel like a lot of the bands kind of sound the same. Whether they have like similar vocals or they're just so obsessed with blast beats and chugging their guitars. And I don't know. It's fun for like a couple songs. But then I just personally can't listen to deathcore for more than a couple songs at a time. I get really bored with it. So take it or leave it. I'm sorry. I feel kind of bad for that. Next up is metalcore. Okay, it depends what metalcore really means here. Because you got the old school metalcore, like Killswitch Engage and like All That Remains, Avenged Sevenfold's old stuff. Like, are we talking about that, or like the modern, more poppy metalcore, the ones with like pop choruses? You get what I mean? Like, we have bands like Motionless in White, Ice Nine Kills, those sorts of bands. I like a lot of these bands, and I grew up, like, this was the subgenre that really, like, made me into a metal head. Like, it's sort of the one I first, like, got really obsessed with before I did deep diving as a teenager and figured out all these other bands and subgenres. So it's like a gateway. I feel like it's a good gateway subgenre because it mixes more of like a digestible sound with metal elements, and it's like I said, it's just a way to tiptoe your way into the metal world. So I like metalcore for that reason. It mixes the harsh and clean vocals, so it's like got a little bit of everything in it, right? I'm gonna say I like metalcore. I like it better than deathcore. They're kind of compared to each other sometimes, but I think metalcore it's kind of along the lines with like glam metal for me. It's got some pop elements, so it makes me think it's kind of cheesy, but I don't hate it. There's plenty of bands I like in the metalcore genre, so. And also the old school stuff, like I was talking about, like Avenged Sevenfold was like my first favorite band. Like the first band I ever like wanted to get a tattoo of, and like knew everything about every member, their social security numbers, their full names. No, I'm just kidding about that, but I probably could have figured that out. I've seen them in concert 6 times. Like, if we're talking about bands like that, it would be in love, but I think the subgenre as a whole is just like, ooh, next up we have doom metal. Ooh, I love doom metal. I'm so cheesy about this, but I'm putting it in love. It's not ride or die because there are bands that are just like throwaway bands for me, but we have bands like Electric Wizard, Cathedral, Lucifer. We have so many awesome doom metal bands, and I just love the slow like spookiness, and I'm just a spooky bitch in general. I love like scary stuff and Halloween, and I like the slowness of doom. Some people think it's like too slow or whatever, but I freaking love it. And I really like Ghost for that reason. All I talk about is Ghost all the time, but their early stuff is like doomy and I fucking love it. And of course I'm a Black Sabbath fan too, and yeah, I can't put this in anywhere but love because it's way, like in my mind looking at the like bands, it's way above those. Almost ride or die, but not quite. Like I said, there's some throwaway bands in the doom metal subgenre for me. By the way, I'm losing my voice. I'm still sick. I don't even know what the fuck is wrong right now, but I'm still sick. Just saying. Next up is progressive metal. Okay, I get in trouble for talking about progressive metal all the time on my TikTok because people really like a lot of progressive bands like Tool and who else? Gojira. I'm not a big progressive metal fan. I respect it for what it is. I think it takes a lot of skill and talent. I think the drumming specifically is very skill based, and it's interesting the things that they do with like the timing of their songs and stuff. Like you have bands like Tool that like play mathematically, and like I don't even know. I'm not smart enough to really figure out what it all means. But progressive metal for me is a little bit kind of like deathcore in the way that I get bored with it. And I'm just gonna say take it or leave it. I just get freaking bored. I don't know what else to say about it. It just never strikes much of an excitement in me. I either haven't heard enough progressive metal bands and I don't know what I'm talking about, or it's just not my taste. Sometimes that happens. Next up we have traditional, and we know, well, I don't know if you guys know, but I know that it goes in ride or die, okay? I love a good traditionally heavy metal band. By traditional, I mean bands sort of like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, even Metallica. I know Metallica is thrash in their early discography, even like Hardwired to Self-Destruct is thrash. I get that, but some of their like traditional style stuff like the Black Album belongs here. We got stuff like even Ozzy Osbourne. I called him glam earlier, but he easily falls in the traditional category as well. Those like old school like 70s and 80s heavy metal bands. They didn't get super crazy heavy, but they weren't soft either, you know, right there in the middle, that lukewarm stuff. That's a thing, actually. People call me lukewarm as an insult on TikTok. They're like, you're a lukewarm fan. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't care. I like, look at me here. I'm literally telling you that I like lukewarm metal, and I don't care. I love it. It's easy to listen to. It's easily digestible. You don't have to think too hard to listen to it. It's just a good time. You can like headbang a little, head nod. You don't have to go crazy. It gets your heart pumping, but it doesn't make your blood pressure so high that you like pass out and go to the hospital, okay? It's like a good in-between genre of music. But I just grew up on a lot of this stuff, listening to like the classic rock stations. They played all this good stuff. Like we got like the Scorpions and hell, even stuff like Motley Crue. I mean, I know they're glam metal, whatever, but just that like classic rock style is what I'm talking about with traditional. Stuff on a little bit of the heavier side with like the guitar solos. You know, you have like Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, all that old school stuff. I love that. Oh, I love it. Next up is slam metal. Okay, slam metal, I'm not super educated in it. I do know like Devourment. I know some of the like brutal death metal bands that kind of like tiptoe into the slam category. I think slam is sort of defined by like the drumming style, right? Like it's got a little bit of like a groovy, hard-hitting drumming style. I guess slam makes sense if you really think about it. The name is self-explanatory. I feel like I'm not educated enough to talk about this. I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I'll add a new row and I'll say something like need to listen to more or something. I'll say haven't heard enough. Uh-oh. Haven't heard enough. And these are going to be the subgenres that I'm going to tell myself I need to go check out and listen to more before I can really rank them. And maybe in the future I'll like properly rank those subgenres. Oh, sludge metal. Okay, sludge metal is sort of like Crowbar comes to mind. I kind of get sludge mixed up with like grunge. I guess it'd be a little, it's just like heavier grunge, right? And then sometimes groove kind of gets thrown in with it. Like bands like Down, I think would be sort of sludgy. But that's another one I haven't heard enough of to really judge. I just know a couple bands in the genre. So yeah, haven't heard enough. Next up is gore grind. Okay, so I do like a gore grind. It falls under that death metal umbrella, but this one's just like a subgenre of a subgenre. I feel like for me, it's could take it or leave it. I'll listen to gore grind bands a little bit here and there, but sometimes they just get a little too gruesome for my liking. Like, I don't like the bands that have, like, SA themes in their songs. It's just a personal thing. I know you're not really advocating for those things by listening to that genre. I know it's more of just, like, a theoretical thing. It's kind of like watching a scary movie or something. It's not meant to be, like, taken seriously or whatever. But for me, gore grind just doesn't really do it for me. I like the music style, but I think the lyrics and stuff just sort of turn me off. And, like, the album covers are kind of gross. I do listen to bands like Carcass and Exhumed, but I never really did like a full deep dive into gore grind, so I'm just gonna say take it or leave it. Okay, now we have symphonic metal. So these are gonna be the bands like Nightwish, Epica, a lot of European bands. Once again, it kind of goes with the power metal section. There's a lot of European symphonic bands. We got Apocalyptica, all that sort of stuff. I don't really listen to this subgenre all that often. It's just never done much for me. I think it's very beautiful, but I'm gonna be one of those cringe people and say it's not metal enough. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's not enough metal in the symphonic metal. Think about bands like Evanescence. Like, they've always been considered like symphonic, like goth metal or whatever, but it's just not hard enough for me. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna say you could take it or leave it. Or honestly, it's close to least favorite. I'm gonna put it down there with black metal. I just don't ever listen to symphonic bands. I listen to power metal bands that are a little symphonic, like Powerwolf. They're pretty good for that, but you know, never mind. I'm putting it back in Take It or Leave It. I like it a little bit more than black metal, and I'd be lying to myself if I said it was least favorite. Okay, next up is industrial. I'm gonna say haven't heard enough with industrial. I know we have bands like Nine Inch Nails and Rammstein and Cell Dweller and all of those. I haven't listened to enough of those to really know, so I can't say. Melodic death metal. So this is gonna be bands like Amon Amarth, The Black Dahlia Murder, Arch Enemy. I love Arch Enemy. And no, it's not just because I'm a girl and because Alyssa White Gliz is amazing. It's actually, I just really like melodic death metal because I love death metal in general, but to hear some melody, like I said, I'm a music nerd. I'm going to put it in love because I just love a good melody. I love that we get to keep the death metal vocals, keep some of the death metal elements when it comes to the drumming and everything else, but we get that melody and like the choruses and like the song structure sort of. Like death metal tends to not have as much of like a set structure. For me, I'm like the type of person who really just loves like classic songwriting and like traditional song patterns and stuff. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think melodic death metal has a lot of that, and it's just the type of thing that really tastes good to me. It fits my taste. So I'm going to put it in the love tier, but I'm going to put it in front of death because I think I like melodic death a little bit more than death metal. And next up we have thrash metal. I'm going to have to put thrash and Ride or Die. I feel like I will give any thrash band a chance, no matter who it is. My favorite thrash bands are probably, other than Metallica, I really like Testament, Megadeth, Exodus, those sorts of bands. I've really been listening to Havoc a lot lately too. But yeah, thrash, it's one of those things that like, I like so many bands in it that I don't think this one could ever go down in the ranking in my mind. It's probably my like all-time favorite subgenre. If I had to just choose one that I could listen to forever, it would probably be thrash metal. And then it seems like the last one is another thrash subgenre. We have cross thrash. I think that means crossover thrash. I like some crossover thrash bands. We have like Suicidal Tendencies, Municipal Waste, those sorts of bands. I listen to it a little bit less. It's basically like hardcore punk meets thrash metal. It's like a mix of the two subgenres. I'm gonna put it in love. I listen to traditional thrash metal a little bit more than crossover thrash, but I love a good cross thrash band. I like the punky vibes, the anarchy and all that stuff. It's fun. But just the music style itself, I like traditional thrash more. So it looks like this is my ranking for metal subgenres. I feel like I should give black metal more of a chance. It might even go into the haven't heard enough. Just because, like, I know some black metal bands, like, would you consider Belphegor black metal? I don't know, they're sort of death metal at the same time. I don't know, maybe I just haven't heard enough of the genre. I know there's a lot of negative ties to black metal, like we have the nationalist, socialist black metal, and I don't support any of that stuff, but I don't think all of it is classified as that. I do like the spooky, like, satanic themes and all that of black metal. It can be fun, but, this was more about the music style, like I said before. So it's in least favorite for that, just from what I've heard. But I'm going to put it in haven't heard enough. So I guess nothing technically goes in least fave. But anyways, this is my ranking. Let me know in the comments down below what you would do on this ranking. I'll put the link to this tier list down below so you can participate yourself. Let me know how you ranked everything, and I guess I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button. If you didn't enjoy it, hit the dislike button. That's fine. Make sure you subscribe for future music related videos, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!